All right, guys. Welcome back to week two. So a lot's happened in the first 2 weeks of the NFL season, and just got plenty to talk about. But first things first, my name's Ricardo.
I'm Jose.
Welcome back to RJ Talks, everybody. So Jose, I guess we can just start from the beginning for week two. We can talk
Yeah.
about the Philadelphia Eagles and the Minnesota Vikings on
Mhm.
display there. Um, I have some concerns, and I think you might agree with me with this concerns.
I
Specific,
would say, yeah. I would
Specifically
agree
with
with
with Philadelphia. Yes, you
that.
guys have won the first two games, but my goodness, man, it's looking like anybody can throw on that defense and score on that defense.
Yep.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, so like just Kirk Cousins looked at his absolute best. I honestly think, Jose, if the Vikings didn't literally fumble the game away, they might have won this game. Kirk Cousins scored 4 touchdowns to 0 interceptions. He threw for 364 passing yards. Got Justin Jefferson an easy 11 catches for 159 yards. Makes it look effortless like he does. But the Super Bowl hangover is definitely real for these Eagles, Jose, because they're really struggling a lot on defense, specifically in the secondary.
Yeah, absolutely. Not to mention the offensive line, Ricardo, has not really helped out Jalen Hurts
Yeah,
in the least.
yeah,
In the least. It seems like Jalen Hurts is just running for his life almost every single play. Specifically, that offensive line, specifically Jason Kelsey. I hate to say it, but Jason Kelsey just seems like he's having a rough time this season. And not to mention the losses that they had on the defensive side of the ball with Gardner Johnson being out,
hmm
right, and joining another team. The, the Philadelphia Eagles so far have been looking like a shell of what they were last year. And Ricardo, this isn't anything that we didn't expect, right? We expected to see the Philadelphia Eagles suffering from some kind of Super Bowl hangover
yeah.
going into this season. Are they bad by any means? No. No, they're not. They could still put points up,
hmm
right? And they could still stop the pass. They just for the life of us are not as consistent as they were last year.
No, and that's one of the real things about Super Bowl hangovers, Jose, is that they affect teams whether you like it or not. Whether it be doing specific stuff like running the football, which they can do. But Jose, I'm happy you brought up Jason Kelsey because Lane Johnson and Jordan Mailata are getting their asses whipped, plain and simple. And those guys were Pro Bowlers, all pros last year. They're
They
just
aren't
getting
getting any
beat.
kind of support. They're
Yeah,
not getting support, so of course they're getting their asses kicked, and they're just tired.
yeah, and I'm curious to know if that has anything to do with the passing game concepts because like it appears that it's taking a lot for Jalen Hurts to get rid of the ball more. I don't know if he's holding on to it more or if it's just the concepts, the chemistry's not there with the receivers, and it's making the linemen look bad. Because I've seen both. I've seen them get whipped up front, and then Jalen Hurts holding the ball too long. But
Right.
very very huge concerns if I'm an Eagles fan and the Vikings. I mean, we told you what was going to happen this year. We didn't think we had much faith in your team to begin with. 0-2, we're not surprised. You guys probably are, but we're not.
They're missing Adam Thielen. We'll say that for sure, right? And we'll get into Adam Thielen later because he had a hell of a game this past week.
Yes.
And we do have to give some kind of props here, Ricardo, to the Philadelphia Eagles. DeAndre Swift played like an absolute monster
Oh
this
yeah.
past game.
Oh yeah.
175 rush yards, or 175 rush yards, a career high for him, mind you.
Mm-hmm.
He's also a Philly native as well. Just some kind of fun to throw a fun
First
fact out
home
there.
game, great performance for him.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Philly home opener for the Philadelphia Eagles, and very much a home opener for DeAndre Swift. 175 rush yards and a single touchdown for that home opener. So props to DeAndre Swift for doing what he did for that offense. Ricardo, we not to offense is really just kind of struggling right now. The team all around is struggling right now. Specifically, this past game, we saw AJ Brown just what happened to him? What happened to AJ Brown this past game?
I honestly think it has frustration to do with the fact that like what we just talked about, maybe the concepts aren't working as well between him and Jalen Hurts. I mean, they're
Mm-hmm.
not as in sync as they were last year. So I don't know. It could be a lot of things, but he's definitely upset. And he has reason to be. He didn't get as much targets that he deserved, but it also has to do with the fact that they're running the football more and more. So whether it's a lack of play from the offensive line, lack of concepts, but it's just he very much looked like he disappeared this game. And from what I saw, Jose, what I think it is, I think it's a new year under a new offensive coordinator, and they're going back into what they know, which is running the football, which gives less targets for the receiver, and AJ Brown's getting frustrated.
Which makes sense as to why DeAndre Swift had such a game this past week.
Yeah, no,
definitely,
absolutely, Jose.
Overall, the Philadelphia Eagles are looking much different than they did last year. They did win this game, but it was sort of an ugly win, right? For the Super Bowl runner-ups this past season. Minnesota's Minnesota. Ricardo, Justin Jefferson had a hell of a game, but again, like what else are we going to say? Kirk Cousins just isn't the quarterback for that team, or arguably for any team, right? Yeah. And Justin Jefferson is going to continue to produce because that's just the way that he is, right? He is just that top-tier, top-level receiver, right? He's just shown this consistency since, the start of his career.
Yeah, I don't have much more to add. You pretty much summed it up perfectly for me. Let's talk about another team that we might start needing to get concerned from on our end. It was another divisional game. No, not another. A divisional game between the Cincinnati Bengals and the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Jose, I know they were 0-2 last year, but I'm getting really worried for the Cincinnati team because there was times last year where in this slow start where I was like, okay, they're just not clicking, but they're an explosive team. They're the same team. I'm starting to see them struggle a lot. I don't know if it's Joe Burrow, if that injury is affecting him that much, or if they're just that bad plays finally catching up with them. But they do not look like the same team they did last year. A close loss to the Ravens, but to start off 0-2 is really rough to come from.
It is tough for this team, but honestly, Ricardo, I will have to counter that, right? Mm-hmm. And I will counter it by saying that the Ravens are hot.
Yes, they are.
The Ravens are hot. And it's a divisional game, right? So it really could have gone either way. Mm-hmm. I mean, as we've said from the very beginning, Ricardo, it's very much split with these divisional games. Not to mention, Ricardo, that the Baltimore Ravens are a rush first team, and we've always seen that.
Yes.
Right. We've seen it since Lamar Jackson has been drafted. He is the rushing quarterback of the league right now. And what were the Cincinnati Bengals lacking this past game?
Running the ball.
Rush defense. Yeah. Rush defense, running the ball. Rush defense specifically, they were completely lacking in that department this past game, Ricardo, and it really did show. I will have to give it up to, and as well as ESPN, I would have to give it up to the T. Higgins. He had quite a game. He was pretty good, and Cincinnati was still able to put up points despite having that rush defense lacking. So it's week 2, Ricardo. I understand your concerns 100%. I mean, for them to start 0-2 again this season, it's repeating old patterns. I completely understand, but the Cincinnati Bengals are not that bad. Yeah. Right, and Joe Burrow is still Joe Burrow, and that's my counter argument to that.
Yeah, and let me make it clear right here, guys. I'm not giving up on them. Like, they've earned my trust for more than that. I'm just getting concerned because I'm just seeing this slow start again. Like you just said, some lack of accountability on defense. I think it's just they faced a good team with the Baltimore Ravens that are rolling. However, Baltimore did lose a key piece. Not just with J.K. Dobbins from the week before, but also they've lost Odell Beckham Jr. for at least a couple of games in the foreseeable future. But, Jose, the one bright spot for the Baltimore Ravens for this game, it's got to be Zay Flowers. He's starting to take some turn of his own. I mean, he's becoming finally a second option to Mark Andrews for once to help out Lamar Jackson, and his speed, and they have him running outside like jet sweeps, and mind you. So Zay Flowers is looking like a good weapon to stay here for Lamar Jackson, which is a good thing.
Zay Flowers and Mark Andrews, we got to give some props to both of those guys. Mark Andrews had a pretty good game as well. It was just it was such a tight knit offense, Ricardo, and you know how tight knit that offense is when they're running the ball too.
Yeah.
And when the other team is just lacking that rush defense. So going into next week, it would be imperative for the Cincinnati Bengals to, like you said, Ricardo, take accountability for that defense and just bring it. They need to create that wall. They need to stop that.
The one player I see that is actually playing fantastic on defense is their linebacker Logan Wilson, 55. I've always been a fan of him. Hendrickson, he had an off game. He's my favorite Bengal on defense, defensive end. But we'll see how they do. We'll see how they do. And Lamar Jackson, played well for Lamar, played well for himself. Looking, going back true to form, and right now they're the lead in the AFC North, the competitive division. So we'll see how that shapes out. Now, Jose, let's go ahead.
Ricardo, there is a completely different team that we have held in high regard that I am really concerned about.
Okay.
But we'll get to that in a little bit.
Absolutely. I'm just going about how the schedule was listed off here. So let's go with the Chiefs and the Jaguars. Very close-knit defensive game between two top NFL teams, and the two contenders in the AFC is what we're just starting to see here. Jose, this was a very, very close game, and it wasn't until the Kansas City Chiefs were able to score a late field goal. They scored a touchdown, but a late field goal to kind of seal it, and their defense was able to hold off Jacksonville. Trevor Lawrence, Jose, from what I saw in this game, everything was just slightly off. It wasn't that he had a bad game; they were just slightly off, specifically in the red zone. They had passes that went a little bit out of bounds. There were times where he missed a couple of receivers. It was just an off game by the Jaguars. But again, Jose, played the Kansas City Chiefs close down to the wire. I mean, you got to think at some point that they might be able to push ahead. And I'm thinking ahead here, Jose. I'm thinking maybe postseason they might be able to finally beat the Chiefs, mind you, and try to solidify their ground in the AFC.
I agree, 100%. Ricardo, the Jacksonville Jaguars are, for the first time in a very long time, are really of no. I'm not really concerned about this team.
Oh yeah,
because they have shown me throughout the past 3 years, and they've shown you as well, the past 3 years that they can play this game, and they can play this game well. They have found their starting quarterback. They have a solid set of weapons on the offensive side of the ball, specifically with the wide receivers and the tight ends, and not to mention the defense is really starting to step up. They held the Kansas City Chiefs to only 17 points. The Kansas City Chiefs to only 17 points. An air raid offense, mind you. However, the Chiefs were not without their own flaws. Last week, they had drop passes everywhere. They could not catch the ball.
Yeah.
The hands were not registering with the catching of the ball.
Yes.
Ricardo, it just wasn't happening that way. This week, they didn't have that much of a problem. But they seem to miss step 2, and step 2 is holding on to the ball as soon as you catch it. so they reined in on step 1, but they completely missed step 2. They just drove right by it, Ricardo. So now that they're holding on to the ball, they fumbled it. They fumbled it 3 times from what I saw, Ricardo. And what in the world is happening right now?
I don't think
to City Chiefs receivers.
I don't know, Jose, and I don't think you can count on Sky Moore to be your number one guy because he scored a touchdown in this game, but he doesn't seem to me like he's a number one receiver. I get that you have Kelsey, but you need it for these teams are going to be smart. Jose, I once saw a play throughout this game that Jacksonville where Mahomes threw it to Kelsey and he was bobbling it, and there were 3 Jaguars hitting him at the same time to draw the ball loose.
Yes.
These teams are not stupid. They know that Kelsey's your main guy, so you're going to need to find another guy to help him out. And if this is part of hubris, Jose, if they keep that hubris where Patrick can make anybody look good, so we don't have to worry about that. Sure, that worked in the regular season, but postseason, when it's tight, when you get against that topper competition, it's going to be a lot harder. But good for Kansas City to get their first win against a very key divisional opponent and avoiding a very unfaithful 0-2. No surprise there. They do have a bit of a Super Bowl hangover, but they're well on their way to that playoff team. I have no doubt on it. And great game, one of the great games for this past week. Very close, very defensive oriented.
For sure. And I do have to give a shout out to somebody on the offense for Kansas City. Ricardo, I talked about this guy last season, and I really liked what I saw from him. Isaiah Pacheco. Pacheco is looking like a dominant runner going into this season, and it looks like he's only getting better. Right? He was a strong runner last year. He's a very elusive runner last year as well, and he's only continued to carry that confidence going into this season. and it's like the defense didn't even see him coming, right? So it's a good thing that they do have that on the backfield for the offense. But like you said, Ricardo, they can't continue to rely on just the run game because that's not a run-first offense. It really isn't. They rely on Patrick Mahomes to be able to get the ball to all of his receivers.
Like you said, just to punctuate your perfect point about Pacheco, he's a running back. He's a running back for the foreseeable future. They don't have to worry about that position. So great for him. He always runs aggressive. I love it. He always runs aggressive. Like it's really hard to take him down. You never, Jose, you know the saying I say, you never see a guy fall backwards. Like he's one of those guys, it's tough to make him go backwards. Like he always like is pushing forward and diving forward even when he's like held. So I'm glad you brought that up.
He reminds me a lot of Samaje. I do really like him and Samaje Perine. The two of them just run like animals. It's awesome. I love it. Ricardo, if you don't mind, I do want to pick the next game because I really need to get this off my chest right now.
Go right ahead.
Yeah, okay. So as I was saying before, we have a team that we have held in high regard going into this season, and they're really starting to concern me now. It's not so much the Bengals, so much as it is the Los Angeles Chargers losing in overtime to the Tennessee Titans. Ricardo, the Tennessee Titans. Ricardo, look at this. The Chargers had a chance to win this game.
Multiple times.
They had multiple chances to win this game, but again, they're starting to show the same kinds of habits as they did the previous year. And I could say this about the Bengals as well, but the Bengals faced a pretty dominant team, so there are some justifications there, right? And there are practical things that they can do, the Bengals that is, in order to nail down those weaknesses, in order to rein those in. The Chargers, they have everything. They have everything that they could possibly ask for, but as soon as the score starts to come in their way, they just find a way to lose. The Chargers just find a way to lose, and that's really just the reality of it. I mean, they had so many opportunities to close this game down, but they let Tennessee march right down the field.
Yep.
Right? Eric Henry with DeAndre Hopkins, and honestly, Ricardo, DeAndre Hopkins barely even made a presence in this game, so we can't even attribute the win to him. We can barely attribute the win to Derrick Henry. Ricardo, Ryan Tannehill made these wide open passes from blown coverage that I'm sitting there going, what in the world happened to this defense? What is going on here? I can't point at any one person or any one position in the Chargers and say, wow, this area is really lacking. I think we should really rein it in. The Chargers have everything they possibly can ask for. And they have the tools and they have the motivation to do it. They've proven that to us. But now they continue to find ways to lose the games that they should be winning.
Jose, I'm very serious when I say this. Brandon Staley is 2 losses away from losing his job.
Yes, he is.
I'm not even kidding you because if you told an owner like, okay, you want me to sign free agents, got it. You want me to trade for Khalil Mack, got it. You want me to get these top flight corners, okay, got it. You want me to reinforce the offensive line for this stud quarterback, perfect, got it. I re-signed the quarterback, awesome. I drafted another receiver, okay, awesome. We're gonna try to run the ball a little bit more. And you're still losing games, close games at the last second when you have a chance to win, and specifically after that playoff loss from last year, Jose. If they lose this next game, that owner is going to be very close to giving him a phone call, not letting him get to the team facility on Monday. Like it's looking awful, and you can't even.
There's no excuse. There's no excuse, man.
And Jose, his caveat, what he's known for, is defense. He has his guys on defense.
And they couldn't stop the deep pass. They could not stop the deep pass from everybody. Ricardo, I would understand if it was Joe Burrow. I would understand if it's Patrick Mahomes. I would understand if it's, oh my goodness. I mean, I'd give Kirk Cousins. I'd give it to Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, I would understand.
Ryan Tannehill. Who does he have on that offense aside from DeAndre Hopkins? And once again, like I said, DeAndre Hopkins barely did anything this game. So we can't even attribute that win to him.
They're very, very close territory to getting their head coach fired because I mean, what else do you guys need? You guys need to play better. You need to tackle better.
Exactly.
You need like
Exactly.
yeah.
What more? What more is there to say but just play better? Just do better. That's it. That's it.
Oh my goodness, Jose.
Don't choke it away. Don't choke it away.
I'm gonna make this prediction. If they get I don't know who they're playing next week. I don't have it in front of me. But if they lose by if they lose by 10 points or more next week, that head coach is getting fired. Bar none. Like I feel bad for the guy. I know it's a tough stretch, but like you're here to win or you're here to not win. You can donate or you don't. Like you have the quarterback that give Justin Herbert to any one of these franchises who's starving for a quarterback. I guarantee they'll win some games with him. So I'm glad you brought this game up next, Jose, because we're gonna see if it's same old Chargers or if they're desperate enough, or if they become desperate enough to make a move.
Ricardo, they're playing the Vikings next week.
Oh boy, if they lose to the Vikings, it's a done deal.
Done.
It's over.
It's done.
Because look how the Vikings have been playing, and they haven't won. I can't. Dude, if they play the same way, Justin Jefferson will have a 200-yard receiving game. I'm not even joking. I'm not even kidding. Like if they play that same way, it's gonna be up and down the field. It's gonna be high scoring. Oh boy.
And once again, Minnesota Vikings fans are going to be jaded, thinking that Kirk Cousins is the second coming of Dan Marino. It's like, come on, man, come on. That's it, Ricardo. I had to bring this up.
Absolutely.
It was in my brain. I had to get it off my chest because these guys, ooh, man, they're on thin ice.
I want to bring up something funny now. I want to bring up the team that you and I both mentioned that might be struggling. And they're looking on real shaky rocks here because they just lost to a team they should not have lost to. Jose, Washington Commanders beat the Denver Broncos 35-33.
That's right.
Broncos are 0-2 to start the season.
Okay. That was a wild game. That's not the wildest game of this week. We'll get to that.
Yeah.
But that was a wild game. Ricardo, look, it was the same old Denver Broncos from last year. They looked better. The offense did look better at times, but they just nosedived into the second half. Once again, it is the typical Denver Broncos. Russell Wilson was making some pretty good reads, right? He was throwing it deep when he needed to. He was taking the short route when he needed to as well. I had to give him some props there. Russell Wilson was starting to look like the Russell Wilson in Seattle. But even or better than the quarterback that he was in Seattle. Ricardo, that very last play for Denver, oh my goodness! I said, "Wow, okay, all right, luck."
And then they botched the 2-point conversion. That's my favorite part. I'm just like,
they did. Oh my goodness! And then once again, Ricardo, there were these moments where some of these quarterbacks in the NFL like try their very best to fit the football into these smallest holes when they just can't do that.
Yes.
When they can't do that, right? It's just this questionable decision making, and that's what Russell Wilson has been doing.
Jose, it'd be one thing if you lost a shootout, like nobody punted, okay? Like they got the ball last, like they just happened to score. It was an off game.
Right.
Jose, the Broncos were up 21-3 in the first quarter.
Yeah.
21-3.
It looked great.
They were doing fantastic.
Wow.
Everyone was excited. Things are going. And you lose to Sam Howell and the Washington Commanders? I mean, I didn't know Sam Howell was this good. Like, I didn't think he was getting...
But that's the thing. He wasn't. He didn't play well.
Jose,
Sam Howell did not look good in this game.
And
he did not.
And this isn't all on Russell Wilson. This defense looked awful. Awful. They just, it flipped a switch and they decided not to tackle anymore. You let Brian Robinson Jr. score 2 touchdowns on you. Close to 5 yards a carry. 4.8, which is close to 5. Which is still, even if you don't get to 5, that's still, they're beating you.
And those running backs look like absolute beasts versus that Denver Bronco defense.
The defense was defense was awful. The defense was awful in this game. It it was a really bad look for a first game, specifically when you're trying to start that this is a new era. Um, we'll see how they play, Jose, because let me pull up the Broncos' schedule here. They're going up against Miami next week. Miami's been on a roll. So you don't want your only win because okay, let me break down the next 3 games. Miami, Chicago, and the Jets. And the Jets and
they have to win against Chicago.
And the Jets are still angry at the Broncos for what they said about Nathaniel Hackett. Credit to them. So you don't want your only win for the first 5 weeks to be against Chicago. They have to win next week's game. They have to if they want to make any.
2 out of those 3 games.
Yeah, they have to win 2 out of those 3 games to not look like the house is on fire. My goodness. But yeah, I had to bring up that game because that is a funny game to look back on, Jose. Which game do you want to talk about next?
Okay, the most the funniest game of this week, Ricardo, and oh my god,
I know where you're going. Go right ahead.
I was on the floor for this entire game, Ricardo. It was like a fever dream. This game, it was the Steelers and the Browns. The Steelers came out with the win, 26-22 against the Cleveland Browns. Ricardo, what happened? What was this game? I was watching the highlights for this game, Ricardo, and I swear to you, I could not stop laughing. I was on the floor the entire time. It's like both of these teams not only couldn't had a hard time scoring, but they forgot how to play the game of football. Like, what the hell, man?
It was a rough football game, like rough football back and forth, like it just ground and pound versus defense. But before I say this, we do have to bring this up, Jose, as awful as it was. Nick Chubb,
yes,
poor guy. We just hope that he's able to like his leg is able to go back. Specifically, if you guys didn't see how that injury happened, I'm very concerned that he'll be able to play football again. So I have to bring that up. Like, I wish him a speedy recovery. I wish him nothing but the best. Hopefully he recovers well, because that was a very ugly sight, and we don't wish that on any player. I'm sure you agree with me, Jose. Exactly the same. Same sentiment. We don't wish that on anyone.
100%. I mean, at this point, it's not even. At this point, a speedy recovery is one thing for sure, and I'm glad that you brought that up. A good recovery is really what they need to search for too, and that's in the case of Aaron Rodgers in Week 1, and that's in the case of Nick Chubb this week, right? Nick Chubb is a huge part of that offense. I mean, I can't even put how essential his place is into words. I can't put it into words.
Jose,
yeah. Nick Chubb is one of the best running backs in the league. So let's just hope that he heals up well.
And honestly, Jose, if it were up to me, I would let him rest 2 seasons, close to 2 seasons, just to make sure that those legs are under him, because of the position he plays. Like, he's gonna need to be confident at 100%. But anyways, back to this game, Jose. It's just. It looks like George Pickens was just tired of this game being as awful as it was, because it was the Browns leading the whole, like, a good majority of the game. And then out of nowhere, George Pickens was just like, okay, I'm just going to score here, and we're going to take the lead. Yeah. And it's just, it's turnover after turnover, field goals, some touchdowns here or there. And
fumble after fumble, drop after drop. I'm like, oh my goodness, does anyone have hands out here?
And then the funniest part of the whole thing was a fumble touchdown as well. The Cleveland Browns fumbled it, and Steelers end up scoring for a touch. It's ridiculous. It was an absolute ridiculous game. It looked like neither team wanted. It's like they knew they were the second choice of Monday Night Football games for whatever reason.
Ricardo, oh my gosh, what in the world? Like, I can't even look. Where do I even start? Like, where do I even start? I want to say that this was one big fluke, because this is just it was so unreal. It was so unreal to me. Every time I looked at the screen and I saw another fumble, I saw another drop pass, I'm like, what is happening? What is going on right now? I couldn't even believe it. Ricardo, Deshaun Watson had moments. He had moments where he looked really good.
He did.
And where he earned that contract. Ricardo, but there were other times where his decision making was just, what were you trying to do? What were you trying to do? Trying to fit that into the smallest of holes, right? And Ricardo, I just couldn't believe it. I just couldn't believe it. Deshaun Watson looks to be a shell of who he once was. I will give him. I will be fair. I'll be fair here. He took a season off, and he was out for the majority of the season last year. But at the same time, he was there for all of practice, for all of spring training, like all of those things. He was there for everything.
Yes.
So he's had all the time in the world to assimilate himself within this team, and now he's really under the microscope because he's been paid this much money, and arguably, Ricardo, he's the one that kickstarted this whole. I think all these quarterbacks should get paid this kind of fully guaranteed contract money. Remember the episode that we came out with?
Yep, absolutely.
We talked all about it.
Yep.
We talked all about it. So I think for him, he really needs to perform this next game. This next week, he really has to come out. He really has to come out and do something.
I'll give him some benefit of the doubt, Jose, because like you said, he was gone for almost 2 years. I'll see how he's performing up to par close to middle of the season. Like, I'll give him some leeway. I do see some improvements, but if middle of the season it's still the same, like inconsistency or looking bad, it's not going to look good for him. Like, it's going to look like the Browns again overpaid, got a quarterback who they thought was going to take him to the next level, maybe possibly win a Super Bowl, but turned out to be a whole lot of nothing as soon as he came into Cleveland. So we'll see how that ends up going, Jose. I mean, and for Pittsburgh fans, you got your first game, like it was a good thing, but it was off of the back of your defense. Your back of your defense and George Pickens.
Right, because we can say that it most definitely was not Kenny Pickett. It was not Kenny
Absolutely
Pickett.
not.
Ricardo, Kenny Pickett played like a scrub this past game. Let's just be real here. He played like an absolute scrub.
Last two games.
The last two games.
Yeah.
This last game in particular, he played like an absolute scrub. He could not throw the ball consistently or accurately at all, right? Not to mention the poor decision-making there, too. I mean, he had checkdowns that were absolutely wide open that could lead them to the first down, and there were so many moments where he just tried to shoot it for the long pass, right? Or even the medium pass in like double in like single or double man-on-man coverage.
Yeah.
I'm like, what in the world is happening? Kenny Pickett cannot play the football game. He cannot play the football game. Right now, at this moment, he has not shown us any sign that he can be a top-tier quarterback or even a mid-tier quarterback in this league.
My question is, where did all this hype come from for Pittsburgh fans that this was going to be their year for the postseason?
No idea.
I have no idea either. So,
Mitch Trubisky, please. Kenny Pickett, please.
Yeah. Mitch Trubisky. That's fun. That's funny.
Come on.
Okay, yeah, okay, guys. So we're gonna take a quick break here, and we're gonna go to the second part of the this video and finish off week 2. Okay, we'll be back.
We'll be right back.